So in the previous video, we created a database table named MIS test, and we added it to an already existing plugin named NWP WAG 2. So in this video, we shall talk about how we can go ahead to add fields to the this particular table we just created. So navigating to system development database fields, here we can then go ahead to add fields to this table I just created. Okay, so clicking on the new button allows us to add different fields to the table. So this first field here allows us to search for the table we want to add a field to. So this field here pulls from all the tables we've already added here. So that first field searches this table and allows you select one of it. So here I just created a table named and I just created a table named MIS test. So just searching for MIS, we'll be able to find the table we want to add it to. So the second field here, which is the serial number, allows us to identify or place this particular field in terms of hierarchy or in terms of arrangement of all the fields in this table. So if I navigate to where I have my ERD, where I have all my tables and fields set. Apologies, my system is somewhat slow. So here you can see we have the last column here. We have some numbers that defines um, that that are in arrangement of ascending order. So in this case where we have 10, 20, 30, 40, it helps us determine the position of a particular field. So let me come back to my departments table. So in this, okay, this department doesn't have, let me pick a table. Okay, so for instance, okay, this files table, as you can see, we have 10, 12, 14, 16. If I go ahead to navigate to where I have, if I go ahead to where I have the table, the table itself, I think the table is okay. Manage documents. So this is the files table. So here where we have 10, 12, 14, 16, like it helps define the hierarchy and the arrangement or the order in which these fields comes out. So here where we have date first, state second, LGA third, um, we have them here, date first, date second, LGA third. So in the event where we, for instance, set this particular word field to maybe 2, we set the value to 2. So it's going to order this in ascending order. So in that case, 2 will be first on this list. So if we come here, we would see that this word field will be the first. And in filling a form, we would also notice that the field is the first. It helps define the hierarchy of that particular data table. So if, for instance, we want to bring this tag table, this is another data table. If, for instance, we want to bring this tag table to come before date, all we just need to do is set the serial number such that it is less than whatever date is. So that is what this serial number does. So I'm just going to put 10 here, and I'm going to keep ascending it by 10, or incrementing it by 10 rather. So the next field here is the field label. Here we define what should show, what value should show for this particular field. So I'm just going to have a date field as my first field. So if in the case this fourth field here, in the case where I want to show something else instead of this particular date, this is where I put it. It could be optional. So in case I want to be like, okay, date of submission, here I can specify whatever value I need to. So in some cases where we might have long description or long labels of a particular field, instead of putting that long label here, you could put something short, something that could easily identify the particular field, and then come here to put the description of what, or the full label of what that field is. But in scenarios where this is not set, what you would see is date. So I'm just going to leave this as date of submission. So this next field helps us specify the type of field we want to use. So it could be a text box, select box, multi-select. So for this particular one, I am just going to select dates. So there are different fields here. Let me just briefly run through them. So text box is, a free text where you can input anything, but it still has a character length, limit length. Select box. So select box, multi-select, time, I think they all fall under the text category. So in our database, when we eventually generate our table for that particular field, what we would see for these first few options, that's for date, select box, multi-select, um, for email, for file, I think. For some fields here, the structure, the type here would be variable character, varchar 33. So some of them, depending on the option you choose here, it defines what type of that particular field is going to be. I'm not going to go into too much details, if not this video will be too long. So I'm just going to go ahead and just fill up the form. You'll see how they take effect once it is generated on the database engine. So I have form fields option. Um, I'm going to explain this later. So do I want this field to be required when the user's fills it? So for example, all fields here are required. So if it is required, it's going to have a red asterisk appended to the label of the particular field. So in that case, you can't submit the form without filling or putting in a value for that field. So do I want it required? So I'm going to select yes. Objects, I'm going to skip this. Attributes. These attributes is more or less you adding other attributes of the particular input field we are creating. Class, should we have any class? Um, this class is pretty much the class of the input field that shall be created for this particular field. I'm just going to, okay, let me just explain the important ones and leave the rest. So appearance in table fields. So if we select show here, what this does is in our data table, it's going to be part of the fields that will appear. So this is our data table. This is an example of a data table. So if for this particular field, I set the value appearance in table field to hide, once we click on that data table, we are not going to see that particular column on the data table. So for example, this date field, if the value is set to hide and I click on the particular button to show this data table, the particular column wouldn't show by default. But if I then go ahead to select display in table, this display in table basically means should it be part of what you could select. So if I click on this table, if I click on the button that displays this data table and um, date is not selected, is not showing on this particular data table because I set it to hide. If this is set to display in table, I could have the option to show it in the data table. But if this is set to do not display in table and this is also set to hide, I wouldn't see the date column in this data table. And even when I come to show column to attempt to select it, it wouldn't come here also. So this display position basically determines if it should show in this list where you could select or deselect it, while this appearance in table field determine if it should show by default in this data table or if it should not show. So I'm going to select this to display in table. I'm also going to select it to show acceptable file formats. This is specific to if files is chosen as the form field type here. Access control, I'm just going to skip this. I'm going to explain this later. Here, these are additional. If you want to add additional notes to a particular data field here, this is where you would add it. Let me just add a note, then you see how it. Please add a then I'm going to skip this also. So once I'm done, I can then go ahead to save changes. So I can see I have added a field named dates to this particular table. I'm just going to add two more fields and then I shall proceed to the next step. So here where I added the dates, next I'm going to add a select field and I am going to show us how I could populate the options for that particular select field. So for the next field, I'm going to set the serial number to 20. I'm going to call it MIS options. I'm going to leave this blank. So for the data field type, I'm going to set it to select box. Form field option, I'm going to leave this blank. Is it a required field? Yes. Should it show? Yes. Display in table? Yes. So now, because this is a form field, this is a select box, this is a select field, this is a drop down field. So here where I have form field option source, I am going to set this to list box class, and then I am going to show us how I can add options to populate this particular select field I am creating. I'm going to go ahead and save. I'm going to add one more. Give the serial number 30. I'm going to call it comments. I'm going to give the field type as text area. So we have different text area here. If the text area is basically to for the users to input values, different values, without any restriction, this should be used, not this, not this. So I'm just going to select text area as the option. Required fields. Okay, so I don't want it required. Users could submit the form or add data to this table without having to fill this comment field and still submit. So I'm going to leave it not required. Should it show in data table? Okay, now I'm going to set this to hide so you see how it comes out. So because this is not a select field, I'm going to set this back to none. Then I'm going to go ahead to save changes. Now I can see that I have three fields under this MIS test. Now if I want to see all the fields I have here, I can optionally come to this drop down here. I'm going to search for MIS test, which is the table I am working with. I'm going to click on search. So clicking on search just pulls up all the database fields we have added to whatever database table I selected here. So now that this is done, I can sort by serial number. So I have just 3 fields here. So that's how you could add more. You could have as many as you want, as many data fields we want to this particular MIS test data table.